Lucky Boys Podcast.
I mean, our parents gave up everything for us, everything. And I just think our mindset has to be different now, you know.
You know what's sad is that I know people, their parents gave up everything and still it wasn't enough.
Again, you're talking about
They still blame the parents
the bad side of human nature.
for not giving them enough.
Yeah, nobody's going to blame myself. I'm not going to blame myself. I have to blame somebody else for my ill fortune.
You know, it just drives me crazy. I got in a bit of a debate with someone very, very close to me and dear to me. And he was telling me about how his parents, the reason I couldn't get into this school or get into that program because my parents couldn't afford and do this. And, I would have been here in life if my parents did that. I'm like, do you understand your parents came here with nothing but the shirt on their backs?
Right.
And the way they worked. And I'm very close with this person, so I know their parents. Like, do you know your mom and dad did this? And your mom, and I'm like, why are we even having this conversation at this age? And you're looking back at your life. You know, it's either that or, I mean, would you work like that for your kids right now? I bet you wouldn't.
Right.
You know, it takes a special power within of love and drive and survival to that instinct. It's really special, and I've seen it. And that's why especially when people say Asians are weak, it drives me absolutely bonkers because it takes so much strength to do what our parents did.
To basically sacrifice their well-being, their life, and struggled so the next generation can thrive.
Well, if you look at the history of China, it's all about the long view. I mean, you talk about patience and all of that, you know. It's not about instant gratification. I think our parents.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always looking at the long game, the end of the story, and then they start carving out a path to make sure that happens.
Right, and they get all their satisfaction out of your success.
Yeah, and that to me, it really breaks my heart because I know how much they sacrifice, and not just my parents, but there's so many other immigrants families beyond Asians that make these intense sacrifices in order to survive, like these super power, unreal sacrifices. I mean, I am talking about working from day to night, raising several kids, and in just an impossible situation. Some of them are single parents, even in this situation, and they're still able to put food in their mouth, roof over their head, education, and when their kids get older, they ask nothing, but just wish that they're the best so they could brag about it to their friends, like, look how great my kid is.
Yeah.
You know, it just and just to have some kids just not able to see or don't want to see what their parents did for them, or just being ungrateful for that, it just drives me crazy.
No, I mean, it's about the culture and society that, again, it's a cliche almost, but it's East versus West. And we were taught since birth that education is important. Family is important.
Yes.
Yeah. And I can imagine other people may have different priorities. Maybe that pair of Air Jordan is the most important thing in your life. And that's a whole different set of priorities.
I mean, it goes back to materialism and minimalism or just being more centric to yourself and understanding what's out there. And I guess as a child, that's acceptable. Yeah. Right? When you're a teenager, you're still looking for your identity, how you're going to add value in this world, and how you're going to be perceived as a man in demand, right? I know I was looking at myself through those lenses when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And as I grew older, I learned to care less about those things because I understood that it really didn't matter, that I was looking at everything incorrectly. I was upside down. When I came to accept myself for who I am and looked at the positives and the things that I really wanted to contribute and the bridges that I wanted to create to other people and allowing a highway into me and vice versa, it just created so much more happiness and joy in my life. Whereas before I kind of closed off and I only allowed certain aspects in that I probably shouldn't have, and it was very shallow and material. And I learned a great deal from that.
Well, you're fortunate enough to be able to critically think
Yeah.
about things in such a way that you can see that. As we said earlier, this country is basically a big experiment. Some aspects of this experiment has succeeded wildly, and certain aspects of this great experiment have not worked out that well, as we've seen in the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. So where do you think we're headed to in the next decade?
Gosh, I wish I had that crystal ball, but I see we have so many different things now. I see the availability of information is so great and so easy that trying to navigate this infinite field of information, whether it's the right information or misinformation, is difficult. And I think that's going to be a good thing and a terrible thing at the same time in the next 10 years. Because we've never had this much information at our fingertips.
And I also think like we never really had that conversation. I mean, that really the conversation about misinformation and the information that access that people are getting now, it's really in the sphere of being talked about, you know, in government and everything else. So, I mean, we don't know what's the future will bring, but I think that because we're having those conversations, that it will eventually get to a point where, you know, it makes things, I would say, like it'll evolve. It'll evolve.
Yeah. The one thing that you can be sure about life, it never stays the same.
Oh, that's absolutely right. One thing that I know is constant is change.
Yeah.